Welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Finance, Nate Horner. Minister, please go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Yesterday, I shared the first quarter fiscal update and economic statement and mentioned that 2025 has brought its share of challenges for everyone. We are now forecasting a $6.5 billion deficit, our first deficit in 5 years. That's $1.3 billion more than we've been projected when we released Budget 2025 in February. I know how important stability is for Albertans, and I also know it hasn't been easy. As President of Treasury Board, I am especially mindful of sustainable public sector collective agreements. We deeply appreciate the people who keep our public services running. Their work impacts us all every single day. It's important that we strike a balance between providing fair salaries to public sector employees and being fair to taxpayers. That's why I am disappointed to be here today. Alberta's government authorized the hiring of 3,000 more teachers, and that was part of our comprehensive offer made to the Alberta Teachers Association for its new contract. This would have cost $750 million over the life of the contract, and the ATA's bargaining team walked away from this offer. In light of yesterday's update, making room for that $750 million was not going to be easy, but we committed to it because we thought it could lead to a fair deal for teachers and stability for students and families. I know Minister Nicolaides is equally disappointed, and he'll share some thoughts with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Minister Horner. And indeed, as you said, I too am extremely disappointed with the ATA bargaining team. Unfortunately, it's becoming increasingly clear that the Alberta Teachers Association union leadership is only interested in playing politics with our kids. The union's campaign and rhetoric have intentionally misled the public and caused unnecessary stress for families and students. In June of this year, the Alberta Teachers Union asked the government to commit to hiring 1,000 more teachers every year for the next 3 years to help decrease class sizes, manage increasingly complex classrooms at an estimated cost of $750 million. The government of Alberta responded and agreed to their request and provided a formal response on August 26th that we would hire these additional teachers and, in addition, that we would provide a 12% salary increase for all teachers, with even more receiving increases higher than that over the term of the contract. 3,000 more teachers would make a huge difference. They would significantly impact alleviating classroom pressure and improve the education landscape for teachers and students. A 12% increase, as I mentioned, was also offered, as well as additional increases that would improve salaries for all teachers. We were informed that the Alberta Teachers Association bargaining team would make a counter-proposal to us on August 27th. However, no such counter-proposal was received. Rather, on August 27th, the bargaining team made it clear that the main interest was increasing wages for teachers and opposing the government. The ATA's focus on wages and not classroom complexity is not what they have been saying in public. For months, they have been talking openly about the need to increase funding, hire more teachers, improve working conditions, and provide more supports for teachers. However, we have now learned that wages are their main concern. The government of Alberta will prioritize children's learning, and we are now exposing the union strategy and tactics. We cannot sit idly by while the public, parents, students, and others are manipulated into supporting a union that has shown its primary interest is, in fact, diverting supports away from the classroom. I'm quite baffled, to be really honest, and I think our hardworking parents and families should ask some tough questions. Union leadership is clearly not representing or interested in best interests of our education system. Parents should be furious that union leaders are gambling with their kids' future and their learning. We are giving union leaders exactly what they've asked for, and now they are ready to walk away. I'm not sure what's happening, but we cannot and will not play politics with our kids. Our government is ready to hire thousands more teachers, invest hundreds of millions into the classroom, and increase teacher pay, but again, for some reason, the union is dissatisfied. Alberta's government will make sure that teacher salaries are generous and competitive. However, our primary goal will always be to invest into our classrooms where it is needed the most. I am again disappointed in the union's leadership, and I encourage families and Albertans at large to have a closer look at the proposal that was offered by the government of Alberta, which was in response to what was asked for. It's really disheartening how union leadership has been upsetting families and kids with the threat of a strike. The ATA keeps saying they want a negotiated settlement, and that's what everybody wants. And before I conclude, I want to share a few key points. I hope that teachers, parents, and the ATA is listening closely. For months, the ATA has been saying that this government does not care about education within the province. For months, I have heard time and time again that we are not focused on the right issues, and nothing could be further from the truth. We have invested $8.6 billion to build and modernize 130 schools across the province. We have invested a historic amount into our education system, reaching $10 billion in 2025. We have expanded career education options and opportunities to ensure students are ready for the future. We have moved away from a 3-year funding model in direct response to feedback that we have received, and we have put together an action team to address aggression and complexity in the classroom. I urge the ATA's bargaining team and their union leadership to come back to the table with the true intent of making an agreement that is fair to teachers, students, and families. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers. Now we'll move to the media question and answer portion. I just ask the media to identify yourself, your outlet, and which minister your question is directed to. We'll start in the room and then go to the phones. We'll start right here. Please go ahead.
Hi, Matt's Case, Canadian Press. Minister Nicolaides, this is for you. I'd like to give you a chance to address the list of Edmonton Public School books that were listed to be pulled from shelves. You had a letter last night. You made a distinction between the grade 10 or younger as part of that letter. Do you object to the books that are on that list?
So I'll be having some more conversations with Edmonton Public Schools. Again, our primary interest with the ministerial order is to ensure that that books that contain graphic depictions of sexual acts are provided to children in an age-appropriate way. So I do have some questions about how some of these titles were selected, and I'll be talking more with Edmonton Public.
Okay. Were you surprised to see this list? I mean, like this is your policy. Obviously, this is your ministerial order. They seem at least to be following your direction. Do you feel like there's misdirection here?
I want to get a better understanding of how these books were selected and what mechanisms and method Edmonton Public Schools has used. So I'll be getting some more information from them shortly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and next.
Mason DePetti, CTV News. You're talking about hiring 3,000 teachers over the next 3 years. Is there this supply in the province already?
Yeah, we do graduate approximately that number of students every year. Of course, we may have to look at other retention and recruitment strategies, but the ultimate and final hiring of the individuals, of course, rests with the individual school boards. We have committed to ensure that our school boards have the financial resources that they need to conduct that hiring. We're confident that we can hire those individuals. There's certainly a great demand and a great need. It's an amazing occupation to enter into, a great choice for young Albertans and individuals. So we're confident that our school boards would be able to hire those individuals needed.
And you sort of touched on this, but there's some very prominent authors on that banned book list. Margaret Atwood, for example. What do you think of that list?
Yeah, I need to talk more with Edmonton Public Schools to get a better understanding of how they came up with that list, and be asking them for some follow-up questions and getting some more clarity from them.
And next.
Caden Brishaw, Livewire, Calgary. You've said the ATA broke off negotiations so close to a reasonable settlement. Can you walk through exactly how the talks ended and who specifically made the decision to stop?
Yeah, as I mentioned, in June, obviously, well, going back to the beginning, of course, we began negotiations, and there was a mediator's recommendation for salary increases, and both the government of Alberta and the ATA union leadership were happy with that recommendation. And we both believed it was fair, it was reasonable, it was equitable. And the ATA, of course, took that deal to their members for ratification, to which their members rejected just slightly. And so we asked them, if your members are unhappy with that offer, please let us know what needs to be done further. In June, they provided us with some more details, including request to hire 1,000 more teachers over the next 3 years, totaling 3,000 teachers. We responded on August 26th with our confirmation that we would entertain that and we would commit to hiring 3,000 more teachers. As I mentioned, on August 27th, we were told that we would receive a counterproposal. However, we did not receive a counterproposal, and negotiations then ended. Mm-hmm. We are happy to welcome them back to the negotiating table. The best way is for us to negotiate a settlement. Any other difficult pathway forward will hurt students. I think what we have on the table is very generous in terms of a 12% salary increase, thousands more teachers that we want to invest into hiring. I think that's quite reasonable.
Mm-hmm. And since you guys matched their offer, why do you think that they still walked away, and what has changed since they made that offer back in June?
I couldn't speak to that. I think you'd have to ask them. We did notice, though, that their position seemed to change. As I mentioned, they came back and said that actually fewer teachers would be preferable with higher pay, and asked for more details or for more as it relates to teacher salaries. So we are trying to get a little bit of a better understanding of what precisely are the troubling issues. They've been mentioning classroom complexity issues. They've said that we need to hire more teachers. We've agreed to that. Now, however, they're saying something different, which is that, well, we actually need increased wages. So we're trying to get a better understanding from them of what precisely they're looking for.
Thank you.
Hi, Laurence Tachereau with Radio Canada. In the past 4 years, since September 2024, there's been an increase of 12% of student population, which is about 91,000, with increasing needs also in English. Yeah. And it's expected that it's going to keep on going. Do you think 3,000 teacher is enough to respond to that increase in population? It's about, if it was about the same increase, so 91,000, it's about 1 teacher per 30 students.
Yeah, I think, again, the request for the number of teachers came from the Alberta Teachers Association. They asked us for 1,000 teachers over the next 3 years. So I'm very happy to take the judgment of the Alberta Teachers Association with respect to the number of teachers that would be needed. We're happy to provide funding to our school divisions so that they can do that. I think it should be sufficient. We're also building and modernizing over 130 schools. We're also providing additional investments, of course. There, you mentioned English as an additional language. That is a specific grant that school boards receive, and we have increased funding to that line item by 2.3% in the last budget. We have increased funding to the refugee grant that school divisions receive and in other areas to support the growing complexity as well. This year alone, we've increased the amount that we're funding for the classroom complexity grant by 30%. So apart from hiring more teachers, we're also providing more funding to some of these areas as well. Yeah.
And you didn't address the possibility for a lockout. Is that a possibility? Would you lock out the teachers?
Well, we prefer a negotiated settlement. We prefer finding a way to reach a negotiated deal. I think we're very, very close. And I would welcome the ATA union leadership to come back to the table so that we can fine-tune some areas and strike a deal that'll be best for our teachers and our students. So that's our hope and priority.
Sorry, you said very close, but do you think that can happen before Tuesday?
I'm happy to entertain. Again, the ATA union leadership has demonstrated that they're at the moment that they're not interested in continuing conversations. So happy to have them return. Again, they have asked for 3,000 more teachers to help manage some of the increasing complexity and class sizes, and we've responded very positively. So I'm confident we can get there. In terms of timing, we'll keep working forward, and I know students will be returning to classrooms very soon, and we'll keep working and we'll keep talking. I think that's the most important thing, is that we just keep talking and finding a way to meet the needs of our teachers and students.
Hi, Colleen Underwood, CBC. I'm just a bit confused because it sounds as though the salary has been an issue for a while. I remember doing this story earlier this year, and the teachers were saying that the bargaining unit representing the employers wasn't able to actually, they didn't have the power to lift the 12%. And so it seems like it's the same issue. Are you guys is it a matter of you're not going to budge on the 12%? I assume that's the biggest stickler right now.
Yeah, happy actually to turn it over to Minister Horner to answer that for you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. The way we look at all public sector bargaining is that we want to be at market. So I wouldn't say that they didn't have the power to lift that. They didn't have the data to lift that, because that puts them well within market. We're looking at the Ontario West comparator provinces. We don't want recruitment and retention challenges. We want all of our occupations to be paid the going rate, and that's what the data shows. In this instance, we're talking about a 12% general wage increase for every teacher. 95% of teachers would get more, up to 17%. That's what's on the table. So I guess my only comment is, we've looked at this from a proactive way. We don't want labor unrest. We want kids in schools. We've tried to come with a fair offer. That's what's on the table. And depending where this goes, I don't see that offer changing, because the data doesn't show that it should. And after the press conference I held yesterday, I don't think Alberta can afford to be an outlier. This is what happened with public sector wages in Alberta for the last 15 years. And that's why we saw a series of zeros and ones. We want them to be at market. We have no appetite to be above market. I just would leave that there.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Just want to address that. Also, I just had a question more about the book ban. Can you just elaborate, what kind of questions do you have for this school board? What do you want to know? That would help.
Yeah, I just want to know a little bit more about their selection method and criteria and process to get a better understanding of how some of these titles were selected.
Is it because you disagree with the list?
I just want to have a clear understanding of what method they used and how they're interpreting the ministerial order. And if we need to work with them and provide some more clarity and some updated communication, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to go over to the phones. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Yes, the first caller is from Timur Durrani from Globe and Mail. Your line is now open.
Hi, thanks much for taking our questions today this morning. This is Timur Durrani from the Globe and Mail. My question is for the Education Minister. I want to turn your attention again to book restrictions in school libraries. Would you be willing to move that goalpost of October for the removal of books should these contract negotiations with teachers continue to remain stalled and a strike potentially happens here?
We'll, look at obviously the current negotiations that we have with our teachers is a fluid situation. So be happy to be responsive and fluid as needed. I know that we're working to, of course, address the hiring of more teachers, the increasing wages of teachers to provide the right conditions so that students can stay in school and continue to learn. So we're happy to address that and operate in as flexible as a way as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. I want to follow up on that a little bit more, though, Minister. I mean, it's now, almost September. Are you willing to provide extra resources, such as through personnel beyond teacher librarians who would help school libraries to do the work with these book restriction order? And, because right now the responsibility is entirely on them, and we keep hearing from them that it's a lot of additional work beyond what they would normally have done. And if these talks continue to remain stalled, potentially a strike happens, that's a lot of work to get done, even if they do come back. There's a lot of sort of work to get done by October.
Sure. We initially were looking at a September deadline. However, we did receive feedback that would be a little tight on timeline, so that's why we provided the October 1st timeline. And I have mentioned in the past that we're not in a position to provide additional resources, but happy to continue to talk with our school boards as we work to implement this policy. At the moment, however, of course, our priority needs to be working with the Alberta Teachers Association to find a deal that works for teachers and families and our children. I think as Minister Horner has just mentioned, we have a very generous offer in front of our teachers and counter proposals that have met the Alberta Teachers Association union leadership with what they've asked for. So I'm hopeful that they'll see the positive in the government's response to their requests, and that we can land a deal and keep our kids learning and in school, which they should be, of course.
Thank you. Operator, please put through the next caller.
Yes, the next one is from Catherine Grukowski from All Alberta. Your line is now open.
Thanks for taking my question. So I'm trying to figure this out in my head. So that 1,000 new teachers per year for 3 years, is that on top of the funding formula to address growth, or is 1,000 new teachers per year for 3 years the total number?
That's the total number. Again, this is what has been requested by the Alberta Teachers Association as what they believe would be necessary to help reduce class sizes and alleviate a lot of the classroom complexity issues that we're seeing a rapid rise of. So that's a total number that they've asked for that would be that we're willing to address and that we're willing to meet.
Okay, and as mentioned, there was that previous offer that the TEBA and the bargaining leadership had agreed on, but was voted down from members. So I'm trying to spot the difference here. What is different from the offer now that was brought to the ATA compared to the one that was voted down? Is it just the new teacher piece, or is there more to it that I'm missing?
Yeah, that's the primary element. I'll invite Minister Horner as well to add any additional commentary he wants to the specifics of the deal. But that was the main thing that we heard coming out of the original deal to the new proposal, was that we needed to hire more individuals. We needed to hire more teachers to help address class sizes and classroom complexity. That was the biggest component for sure. And as I mentioned, we've responded positively. We're happy to do that. We're happy, even though we're facing, of course, a $6 billion deficit, as Minister Horner mentioned, to invest the $750 million that would be necessary to hire those additional individuals and help alleviate challenges in our classrooms. So that is one of the major differences. So, however, again, in response, the union leadership has told us that, in fact, their preference now is less teachers and higher wages. So we're trying to get a clear understanding. We had a mediator's recommendation that the union leadership supported back in the spring, that they thought was sufficient and that they took to their members for ratification. Then that was voted down in June. They came back, asked for 3,000 more teachers. We agreed to that. And now they're changing tune again and saying, well, maybe we should look at less teachers and higher salaries. So we're trying to really work with them, but there seems to be some changing requests here.
Okay, and we'll go to the next caller on the line.
The next one is from Stephen Sandor from Edmonton Journal. Your line is now open.
Hello, thank you for doing this. Stephen Sandor from the Edmonton Journal. I know you touched on the lockout possibility, but has the ATA talked about activating the strike clock? And can you tell Alberta parents if their kids are going to be going to school next week?
The ATA has not, to my knowledge, I don't know if Minister Horner has otherwise, but not made any indication that they'll be proceeding to a strike. So schools will be continuing as normal unless we hear otherwise. However, the government of Alberta's #1 priority is to make sure that students are in school and that students are learning, and that will remain our priority and our position. I'm really confident that we won't get to that position. Again, we're providing a 12% salary increase to all teachers. We are investing to hire 3,000 more teachers over the next few years. We're investing $8.6 billion to build and modernize over 130 schools. I think that this is an incredibly strong offer. I'm confident that union leadership will see that and endorse it. Of course, yeah.
I would just add that they have to provide 72 hours notice. That's all that I can say definitively, and I would ask the ATA.
And your follow-up?
No follow-up, thank you.
All right. Operator, please put through the next caller.
The next one is from Don Braid from Calgary Herald. Your line is now open.
Ministers, I'd like to hear if you have ruled out entirely the possibility of a back-to-work order. Can you tell us if you will not consider a back-to-work order under any circumstances here? That would be question one.
I'm not committing to anything other than, we have a fair deal on the table. We expect and hope that the ATA comes back to the table and we can reach a negotiated settlement. I don't want to speculate about what may happen in the future. We have tools at our disposal, so do they. But I hope that this is concluded in a negotiated way and soon.
To follow up, parents, of course, are going to be interested in the details, but what they're really interested in is whether there's going to be a strike here, and surely a lot of parents are freaked right now to hear a news conference like this one. Many students are already back in school. So what are your thoughts on the possibilities here, and what do you advise parents to be doing right now? Because there is, until October 7th, the open possibility of a strike, unless, of course, you guys lock out.
Yeah, well, of course, the ATA held the strike vote back in the late spring, and they have a certain time window, as you mentioned, into October. They have to provide 72 hours notice, so that's been on the table, so to speak. That's been an available option since the strike vote was conducted in late spring. Our priority is to keep our kids in school. Their learning is essential, and their development is critical, and that needs to continue. And we are, of course, working as hard as we can to ensure that we address the priorities and concerns of our teachers and the positions that are being communicated to us by ATA union leadership. As I mentioned, they came back in June and said that we need to invest more in hiring more teachers, 3,000 more teachers. We took a close look at our finances. We took a close look at other parameters and made the decision to formally accept that request, which we communicated to them on August 26th. On August 27th, we received no counterproposal, and the ATA indicated that we had reached an impasse. So we've met them with what they've been requesting, and we'll continue to do what's necessary to ensure that we can keep kids in the classroom.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions in room or on the line, that concludes our press conference for today. Please follow up with our office with any further questions. My contact is on the ministerial statement released last night. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.